Welcome to the Tudor Dixon podcast. Today we have James O'Keefe with us. He is an investigative journalist and the founder and CEO of O'Keefe Media Group. He's been traveling around exposing what I think some of us in states that he visited have been trying to expose for a while, but it's different when you actually see it happen. James O'Keefe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be with you.
So I'm in Michigan. You came to Michigan recently to prove that you can vote without an ID, but you could also just kind of vote if you knew someone's name, and expose some pretty dangerous guys that are voting who aren't even American citizens, right?
Yep. Non-citizens voting is against the law in the United States. People say it doesn't happen. We identified two Iranian men who not only were non-citizens, but also they have been, one of them is incarcerated. So that's a second reason you can't vote. You can vote in Michigan if you're a felon, if you're out of jail, but this guy is a felon and in jail. We interviewed the other guy and he said, well, I intend to vote today. So we interviewed the voter who's not a citizen and he said that he was going to vote. So it's a big smoking gun on an issue where there's a lot of circumstantial evidence and speculation, but we just report the facts. And that video caused quite a stir. The Department of Justice went to Michigan after our video, so we hope they take action.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to break down here for people who don't understand how this is working. But first of all, and mostly, you went to this guy's house and he was there and he's on the worst of the worst list. Like
Yes.
that, over and above the voting, I live in Michigan and here's a guy on the worst of the worst list. You actually found him.
Yep. We that's what we do. We go there. We are in the field for the last month. We have teams of 15 people on the ground scouring through Detroit. These are not safe places to be, as you know, and Dearborn and Flint. And I myself was on the ground. I went to an abandoned building where there were squatters drinking alcohol, and there's were the two absentee ballots at this building. That's another video that we did, where two different absentee ballots were sent in with different signatures on them. So that's a question. Who's signing this extra ballot? And this is a topic, voter fraud, which is extremely controversial in this country, right? Some people say it swings elections. Other people say that elections are secure. That's what's happening. So what's special about our reports is that they're very fact-based. I don't ask you to trust me by virtue of the fact that I can be believed. I show you. And in Detroit, we went to this guy's house and he said he intends to vote today. He is not legal. He's not a citizen of this country. Michelle admits into a hidden camera on primary day in Dearborn, Michigan on August 4th that he's about to vote.
Your name is Mr. Afshin Michelle, right?
That is correct.
Are you interested to vote?
Yeah, we're going a little bit later.
Despite being a non-citizen. And Michigan poll workers on August 4th were happily prepared to hand these non-citizens voting ballots.
So I have a felony. I'm a sex offender.
Doesn't matter.
As long as my name is there.
If your name is here, you can vote.
And he had voted before. You asked him if he had voted before, and he said he had. Now, there was some discrepancy because the system showed that he had recently voted or voted in 2016 and 22, right? But he was like, oh, I haven't voted in many years.
Yeah, his mind was foggy. He said, I haven't voted in years, but he voted in 2016 and 22 and 24, and he's not a citizen. So that's a smoking gun evidence right there. And the fact that he's still registered to vote and on the rolls.
So theoretically, if that's the case, and you in Michigan, for people who don't know, I don't necessarily have to bring my ID to vote. If I sign an affidavit when I get there saying, this is who I am Tudor Dixon, they're like, okay, we'll just believe you. So theoretically, if you had a list of low propensity voters and you were pretty confident that those voters were not going to come out to vote, couldn't you do that and just say you were the voter?
Yeah, that's what the rest of our videos showed. That's what we showed in Minnesota. And just 2 hours ago, I broke a story in Alaska where I went in and just said the name of Lisa Murkowski. That's, for those of you who don't know, Senator Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, is the one opposing the law called the SAFE Act, which is supposed to clean the system up. And I just said the name of her brother, and they offered me the opportunity to vote in the state of Alaska. James O'Keefe going in there. Brian Murkowski, Senator Murkowski's brother, doesn't even live in Alaska, but his name is still on the voter rolls, so we're going to go in there and see if they let us vote in his name. Now, we're not going to actually vote. We're not impersonating him. We're just saying his name and asking questions. Hello there. How are you doing this morning? Good. Nice. Excited to vote here. The name is Brian Murkowski.
If you want, we can look you up first. Or...
Yeah, I just want to see this right
No, I left the ID at home.
okay.
Can I give you a name?
Yeah, we'll trade.
Okay, sorry about that. The last name is Murkowski.
And what is your first name?
The name is Brian.
Do you know how to spell Brian?
Brian. Is the name on the list?
You are.
Okay, perfect. So this is the right place.
Yes. State ID.
Oh, okay.
Military ID.
I think I left that at home.
Oh.
Can
maybe I should be like TSA. A real ID, please.
Would it be possible to vote without it today?
Absolutely possible.
Oh, good.
You have a mugshot.
Oh, I think I left that at home. Blood?
DNA.
I got blood. Yeah.
You got blood. You want to leave your blood?
Can you check to see if I'm in the right place? So there's a lot of loopholes and vulnerabilities. I didn't even know that in the state of Minnesota, for example, you could vouch for 8 other people. I did not know that. I don't think most people know that.
Explain what that means, because I agree with you. This is why I find this so fascinating.
I think the majority of people watching this didn't know that until last week.
Right.
So it's that in and of itself is a shock, actually. But what it means is there's only 2 states in the United States that have vouching. One is Minnesota, one is Iowa. Vouching means I just show up and say, hey, I got 8 people living in my precinct and I'm vouching for them. And they say, okay, fine. And they're taking my word for it. In Iowa, you can only vouch for 1 person. In Minnesota, you can vouch for 8 other people. So I proposed the most absurd, ridiculous, most outrageous, shocking situation ever. I showed up literally dressed like Muhammad, and Cam Higbee showed up in a full burqa. Now that's a female costume, but he pretended to be a woman. And they said, no problem. They said, quote, you, referring to me, you are the ID for the 8 people. So in other words, my word for it counts. This was so shocking, it has sent shockwaves through the state. Every mainstream media organization has been covering the video and attacking me personally. The Secretary of State of Minnesota has called for my arrest. Senator Lisa Murkowski just today called for my arrest. I've never seen so many people call for my arrest just by showing up and asking questions. So these videos have shaken the foundation of people's perspective on this issue. And the reason that is so is because you're seeing it for yourself. No one really goes in there with a camera and shows you. People talk about this stuff, but they rarely actually show you. And that's what we've done. Demonstrated the vulnerabilities, the loopholes, the gaps, and the absurdities and ironies of our election officials telling people dressed in full burqa that they can take our word for it.
So essentially, if you walked in there with relatives from another state and vouched for them, could they vote in Minnesota?
Yeah, that's what they told me. That's what they said in the video. You say you can vote today. You just vouch for them and fill out this form and sign it. So all you have to, of course, I didn't sign it because I'd be committing a felony if I did. So one
vote is essentially could be worth 9.
That's exactly right. Yep. In vouching in Minnesota.
And we know that there are communities where people are trying to reduce or loosen the laws there, and that they would have a motivation to vote these people. And now there were questions years back, and I think this is something you worked on too, where the people had actually collected a bunch of ballots in their car and went from place to place in what they call Little Somalia there and gathered a bunch of absentee ballots and just took them.
Yep, that was a video. Liban Mohammed in 2020 in Minneapolis, he said he had piles of ballots in his car. You could see him filming himself. I did not film him. He filmed himself on Snapchat. That video was provided to me by a source that is close to him. And that's a misdemeanor in the state of Minnesota to have 60 other people's ballots that he's ballot harvesting, but you can only take 3 to the site. You can't have 60 of them. So he's bragging about making money collecting all these ballots. And again, I was viciously and personally attacked. The New York Times did a front page story, not upset about this, but attacking me personally for what they called a, quote, coordinated disinformation campaign. This is the part that's really remarkable. Perhaps this is the headline, that the major media, which usually ignores me, is up in arms about these tapes in 2020 and now again in 2026. What exactly about any of this is misinformation, disinformation, or misrepresentation?
But you didn't vote. I mean, they're calling for your arrest, but you didn't actually, just to clarify for the audience, you didn't take a ballot.
We never touched a ballot. We never touched an affidavit. We didn't procure a ballot. We didn't do any of the sorts of things that would subject us to criminal prosecution. And I have 20 years of experience in this. And of course, I have attorneys advising me. We walked right up to the line, but we did not cross it because we wanted to show people how it works. And we're educating the American people and the people in Minnesota about how this works. 99% of people don't even know about this. So we think it's our civic duty, and we think the public has a right to know how this actually works in practice and whether we really want the system to work this way.
Well, I also think it's quite stunning that Senator Murkowski has not come out and said, okay, I'm actually seeing the flaws in the system, because there has been a lot of pressure to get the SAVE Act passed, and she has been one of the holdouts. And you would think that having seen the system in her own state be so vulnerable to corruption and fraud that she would then instead come out and say, I need to take a look at this.
No, she's come out and called for law enforcement to get involved here, and I should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I'm not sure for what. Again, it's not illegal to show up and ask questions. Alaska's a one-party consent state to record, so you can record people as long as you're talking to them in the state of Alaska. So I'd be curious what exactly she's calling for my prosecution on. Like I said, no laws were broken during the filming of these videos. I've been threatened with arrest more times than I can count throughout my life. And I think the reason that is because it's a lot more of a threat to do the type of journalism where you've caught people dead to rights. In the video from Alaska, which we just dropped 2 hours ago, o'keefemediagroup.com, you actually see the poll worker say, quote, "We're just trying to figure this out." The woman says out loud they don't know what to do, what's going on. One of them asked to draw my blood. I think she was being facetious, but the system is kind of a joke. So the type of journalism where you show that on hidden cameras is a big threat. It's embarrassing to Lisa Murkowski. It contradicts everything she says. There's more tape we have coming out. Everyone always asks me what's next. I'll tell you what's next. Lisa Murkowski talks about these rural islands in Alaska. The people are being disenfranchised. We talked to all those people on the islands. We actually went there 1,000 miles southwest of Anchorage on remote places no one's ever heard of, talked to the native population, talked to the locals, and they contradicted what Lisa Murkowski said. So that's why she's calling for my arrest, because it's embarrassing to her. I think it's sad in America that politicians are calling for the arrests of journalists who they don't like, but that's where we are.
Well, I also think there is a true lack of understanding when you have, in 2020, we had very lax laws in the state of Michigan. And in fact, I would say we had a Secretary of State that was creating new rules around elections that were illegal, but there was no one fighting against that. And so I do believe that a lot of this stuff kind of took off in a more serious fashion in 2020 and in 2022. In 24, the RNC sued her and said, you can't do this, because she was saying, we're not going to look at signatures. We're not going to look at, there's going to be no safeguards. And when you are only signing an affidavit saying, I am the person, and then they don't compare your signature, there's no
Right.
checks and balances. Of course, there's an ability to have fraud, but I will say, I think there are still concerns. And the reason I say this is, in the state of Michigan, I think you have to have an overwhelming number of Republicans come out to win and to beat the other side at their games. And I say that because if I look at just this last primary, I really, in my heart of hearts, feel like that polling on Abdul was more accurate than people want you to know. And they're like, oh gosh, at the end, it was Haley Stevens and Abdul neck and neck. I just think that they have a way of inflating those votes and they couldn't inflate them enough.
Well, I mean, I think these videos speak for themselves and show the vulnerabilities in the system. And I think it's a positive thing that major media, including CBS News and the local Fox 5 News and every local media station in the state of Minnesota has covered these videos and played them, to my shock. They actually played them showing, yeah, you're the ID. They may have mischaracterized the video, but at least the citizens are seeing this stuff with their own eyes.
You also testified in front of Congress and you spoke about what you found on the streets of California. To me, this is critical for people to understand why we want the SAVE Act passed. Because if you are in a state that is running your elections correctly, you have no control over the fact that California is doing what California is doing. And when you say you can ballot harvest up to 3 ballots in Minnesota, well, you can ballot harvest as much as you want in California. And these lax rules ultimately affect the rest of the states on who we have in the federal government. And to me, that's why the rest of the states are at this point now where they're going, wait a minute, if you're going to just have a wild, wild west and you're not going to have any rules as to how we ensure that the people who are voting are actually U.S. citizens and it's actually how they wanted to vote and you're not buying votes, then we have to have the SAVE Act passed. But tell our audience what you found in California, because I also thought that was evil genius, I guess I'll say, because they're out on the streets just paying for the ballots of homeless people.
Yep. What we found, this was in February, we went there and we recorded petitioners in California. To get something on the ballot, you have to sign a petition. And we've recorded these petitioners. They were paying homeless people $2 cash, 2 $1 bills, and they were providing them the names of current voters for the homeless to forge signatures on the petitions, which is a California felony. We also uncovered people paying homeless to register to vote. That's a federal felony. And the FBI has arrested the people that we caught on tape. A woman named Brenda Brown was arrested by the FBI, U.S. Attorney Bill Asalia. So a lot of people, a lot of your audience, well, nothing ever happens as a result of what you do, O'Keefe. Well, that's just not true. You could say that not enough happens, but something clearly happened. We got an arrest. It may not be enough. And in response to that, I testified in the Senate about everything I just said and showed. And a couple senators, Senator Ron Johnson, Senator Rand Paul, issuing subpoenas to some of these companies that are doing this petitioning. So the fraud is out there. Voter fraud, in fact, happens. And the question is now, to what degree? And what safeguards do we need to put in place?
I guess I would say, they're very busy reporting today on everything that you've done and making you out to be the criminal. But you are just now telling us that you actually your reporting did result in arrests. And that to me is a very big deal, because if you know that people have been arrested, then that stops crime in the future. And I know the left would tell you, oh, nobody should be arrested. But the reality is that when people have consequences, other people don't do it because they don't want those same consequences. So how do you make that well known? Because I honestly didn't know that. I was like, my gosh, these people are just
I guess that's the issue of our time, is how do you make anything well known? That's the issue of our day. This is the attention economy, and you have to bring attention to something. I've been doing this for 22 years. I've been doing it a long time, and the same issues affecting me 20 years ago when I was 19 affect me now. How do I get the mainstream media to cut? Well, first of all, the mainstream media is covering this. I don't know. Can you name any other reporter out there who's getting the mainstream media to cover voter fraud? So we're accomplishing that. Well, I'm just giving you the frequently asked questions I get asked. How do we get people who disagree with us? How do we change their mind? Well, I think people have a silver bulletitis. They think there's going to be one thing that's going to change everything. We're a deeply divided nation. People are dogmatic in their belief on this issue. People believe what they want to believe, and changing their mind is not going to be easy. TikTok has banned my account. It banned Cam Higbee this week. So we're back to 2020 levels of censorship because we're effective. The main thing for me to do is to keep going, is to keep releasing tapes, keep releasing videos that shock the conscience, that cause righteous indignation in the minds of ordinary and reasonable people. I'm not appealing to people's sense of ideology on this by telling you what you want to believe. I'm showing you things that should shock 80, 90% of people. That's the only way forward. Now, the problem is the incentives. I'm the one who gets threatened. There's no incentive for me to be doing this. I say my price is my life. That's my motto because, it's kind of philanthropic work. There's no profit in doing this. There's a lot of liability. I get sued. I get threatened. So I've got to surround myself with people who believe in the same things I believe in, because long term, I think this country has to figure out a way to incentivize accountability and incentivize fraud exposure. Right now, there's a disincentive to doing what I do. So I think that's something that maybe the Treasury Department can work on. Hopefully Trump is working on, which is providing an incentive for people to blow whistle and an incentive for people to expose the truth and expose fraud. There's no incentive to do investigative journalism. So right now it's a philanthropic thing. It's a nonprofit activity. You can donate to us at o'keefemediagroup.com. But the solution and the path forward is to not quit and to keep exposing.
Well, I have to say, you're right about the fact that people might see it and right in front of their own face and not believe it, because I saw the gentleman whose name you used, I think it was in Minnesota, and they asked him, well, does this make you question your faith in the election system? And he was like, no, I think it's working. And I was like, how? How do you think that? It was your own name.
Yeah, but and I mean, look at the comments though. Like he is way far. I mean, I did not intentionally choose that name. He just, as a guy, happened to have the same name. He's not your typical guy, but that was kind of a blessing, because his reaction is going to further cause people to go, are you out of your mind? Like, freedom is the freedom to say 1 + 1 = 2. That's what George Orwell wrote. So.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for what you do every day. Thank you for exposing this. James O'Keefe, again, tell people how they can help.
o'keefemediagroup.com. Send us a donation of $5 or $10. Help us. We're demonetized on YouTube and banned on TikTok. We can't do super chats. I am the most censored, threatened journalist ever, certainly in America right now, because the truth, telling the truth in times of universal deceit is a revolutionary act.
Well, especially if the truth is about voter fraud, because then you're threatening people's power. So
Correct.
We get that. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us on this podcast. For this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Rumble, or YouTube at Tudor Dixon. And join us next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.